Hello, hello, hello. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Glad to see you guys here online today. It's always nice. Just setting up my phone real quick so that I can see the Twitch chat. Should anyone decide to chat there instead of on the Discord server. Hopefully you guys had a really great Thanksgiving holiday and that you guys ate copious amounts of food, or you played tons of games, or you did just nothing and you had a wonderful time just relaxing and having some downtime, right? Having some time for yourself. Oh, come on now. All I'm trying to do is like view my channel. And of course, it's being a pain. Let's see. Sorry, folks. Give me just 1 second. There we go. That's more like it. I think I can do that and be okay. So welcome. Glad to have you here. Today I wanted to I know we're on the holiday weekend, and I don't want to make this longer than it has to be because I've got family things to do, and you guys probably have some fun things to do or some work to get done, right? Because you have stuff due on Monday. So I want to make sure that you have enough to work with and enough to go on. Oh, what's going on here? Jeez, Benezus. Is my stream garbage today? Is it like tons of drop frames and stuff? Monkey spit. Give me a second. I want to make sure that everything's running the way it should. And let's go here to my channel. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, it looks like an advertisement. That's what it looks like. Just gotta give it a second. Dun, 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 dun. One of these days, everything will be great. No, stream's going fine. Okay. Yeah, we're okay. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off right now so I don't suck up the bandwidth. Okay, so what I wanted to focus on today, I asked, so I've got 3 sections of the freshman intro class, and in all the hoopla of getting ready for the holiday and having the last day of class that week, I forgot to ask 2 of those sections if they wanted to do a PKQ&A. I asked the 3rd section of the day, and there were like 10 people who wanted to do one. So I was like, cool, I'll just go ahead and do one. Now, if you are joining on the Discord server, I would ask that you post your questions for this particular stream in the help channel. And then, because I'm going to be moderating that, I don't have my moderators on today, so it's just me. And so I'll watch the help channel for any questions that come up there. If you mention anything in the stream on the Twitch chat, I should see it there as well. But I've got to split my focus, and so I want to make sure that I'm not missing anyone who's asking important stuff. So let's see. The number 1 requested item was that we do RPG Phase 1 in UML, that we work on that together. And for those of you who take the time to watch this stream or to watch the archive videos, I want to make sure that you get some bonus or some benefit out of participating in that way. So I'm going to go ahead and work with you on the RPG Phase 1 UML. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to take it all the way through, but it seems like, because it's kind of a small UML, chances are we'll just take it all the way through. We'll just straight through to completion, okay? So first we have to understand what we're working with. Let's see, and there we go. So let's make sure that we understand the requirements. Now, we often refer to this as the domain or the problem domain. This is the area that you're trying to solve. This is the area of information that you need to know so that you can build the application you're being asked to build. Now, in this write-up, there's a ton of flavor text, right? I mean, there's a bunch of like background information about how much I like RPGs. That really has nothing to do with this application other than it just gives you background understanding of why I chose this. But then we get into the requirements section and this grayed out area. In fact, I'm going to zoom in just to make sure it's readable. It talks about the way the roles that are played in a role-playing game, to overuse terms. We talk about the GM, who is the game master and telling the story, and that they understand how the rules work. They're also the ones who adjudicate the outcomes of roles and circumstances, choices made by the players. The GM decides what happens as a result of those choices between how the player described it and the roll of the dice. For the purposes of this lab, the GM will have the dice and will keep them in a bag. And actually, the way this is designed, the dice bag is not only magically infinite, but it's also fairly intelligent in the sense that it knows how to create dice, and it knows how to tell them to roll, and it knows to add them together and then add a modifier and then return that result. It's actually not that much logic. It's a very small amount of logic to make that all happen. And so the dice bag is a little bit intelligent, but it's not technically a controller. It's still kind of I could see the arguments back and forth. Is it a controller? Is it a model? Is it a controller? Is it a model? I could see it kind of both ways, but I usually view controllers as highly intelligent classes. They are boss classes. They understand how a lot of stuff works. In this case, the dice bag knows how to take in a request to roll dice, and then it will make the dice as needed. It will roll them, get a result, and return it, but doesn't have a lot of intelligence outside of that. It doesn't know what the meaning of the dice are. It doesn't know what the meaning of the roll is. So chances are I'm going to spin that up as a model class. Now I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. The stuff in gray is a little bit of pseudocode stuff. It's a little bit of rules and mechanics. Not a ton, just a little. Then we get into the numbered section. And this is the behavior, right? The program will use the console for input and output. The game will be entirely text-based. These are functional requirements. These are external specifications, but nothing super mind-blowing here at this point, right? Oh, come on. Yeah, apparently I'm having some lag, and I apologize now. Not going to be able to fix it. We're just going to roll with it. Here we go. Watch the archive if this stream is unwatchable. All right, so at the start of the game, the GM will automatically create a randomly generated hero. That means I'm going to spin up the application, and the very first thing it's going to do is that the GM is going to create a hero object based on the rules of the application, which we talk about later. Then it's going to present that character to the user, and then it's going to ask the user, do you want to keep this character? If the user says yes, then the user is prompted for a name for the character so that we can name the character and then keep it, right? Let's see, hang on a second. Oh, I'm sorry. I asked the question from the perspective of, do they want to keep the character? The requirements here ask if they wish to re-roll the character. So if they say yes, we re-roll the entire character. If the user accepts the character as it is, if they say no, don't re-roll it, then we prompt them for a character name. And we are required to have some console UI class, which we'll talk about in a moment, a game master class, a hero, a dice bag, and a die class. So 5 classes are required. What's not listed here, but that we should always have, is also a driver class. So that's going to be 6 classes now. Okay, now if you look at console UI, it talks about the role of this class, how it acts as the view. It has no business intelligence. It's just communicating to and from the user. And then it has a special note here that says, if you completed the console IO lab, if you have the library for displaying and receiving user input, our library is primarily about receiving user input once we display a prompt. But we don't have just a straight up display message with no user input, right? That's just a print line. If you have a library for getting user input, you can use that library, which is what we're going to do. And then we have the game master class. It talks about how the GM, before we get too far ahead of ourselves here, let's go ahead and start our UML diagram. So a few things we're going to set up. I'm going to try something I've never done before. I'm going to create just some reusable parts. Okay. Here I'm just going to just call this class. There we go. So now we have a class entity. We're probably going to have instance of and uses. So I'm going to grab this arrow, and I'm purposely moving them out of this upper left corner because every time I duplicate something from this view on the right, it's going to appear here in the upper left corner. So I want to make sure I have some space there. I'll go ahead and inch that up though. And on this arrow, I'm going to, I'll make it left to right. So I'll remove over here in the bottom right corner in the properties, right above my face in the stream, there is this area highlighted in blue now that says LT equals, and I don't know what the LT, I always want to say less than, but that's not really what this means. I'm not sure what the LT means in this case. Line type, that's what it means. It means line type. And it equals dot to make the dashes, naturally. Dot to make the dashes, and then it has a single greater than or less than symbol on either side of the dot to indicate an arrowhead, an open arrowhead. I think if I do a double, it gives me a closed arrowhead, as you can see here in the diagram. But we want an open arrowhead, so we just want to have a single angle bracket, and I'm going to go ahead and just take the left head off. We can always change that around if we want, and I will change this to a uses arrow. Oops, did not mean to, there we go. And then I will double click that uses arrow, bring it down a little bit, and change the uses to instance of, so that I have that kind of arrow. I'm going to go ahead and double click the composition pointer, and I'm going to keep it oriented the way that it is, because as you may recall, the start of the dashed arrow for uses goes from the user to the used. And the same thing is true of instance of. It goes from the owner of the instance to the class that it is the instance of. But the diamond on a stick, this thing, the diamond is on the owner and the stick is on the owned. So by maintaining this orientation, they all effectively have the same start, the same origin object, and the same destination object based on how I have them laid out right now. So I'm going to keep it the way that it is. I'm not going to flip this diamond around. We're not dealing with inheritance. We're not dealing with interface implementation, so we're okay there so far. I'm going to go ahead and start building the classes. Just double click the class item over here on the left. Remember, I want these as reusable objects, and that's why I have them off to the side. And the last thing is, I know I'm going to need a library, but I only really need one. So let's go ahead and bring our library out, and we're going to call this console.io. Did I get that right? I think I did. And I like to specify that this is a library. This has its own package that it's in, that it comes with. So we could specify that here. We could say, if we wanted to, we could say lib.console.io. I feel like that's not necessary in this case. The library has that package. It's not that lib package is not part of our application. It's just part of the library. So I'm not too worried about it. Let's see first, and then of course, let's get our little driver class in there. So driver, and then down here, we will start it as a static with an underline, public main, that takes in args of type string array and returns void. By the way, I'm going to do my best to move as quickly as possible here. So since this is in a video format, you'll be able to back it up in the archive. You can rewind it, watch it again, whatever works for you, that's fine by me, but I don't want to belabor these points too long. Let's see. And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate class, and we're going to make this the game master class. And we already know that driver is going to talk to game master, or our driver is going to use game master is going to use console.io. I know it's a uses, and even if I don't know it's a uses, I can always start with a uses and change it to an instance of. But at this point, I intend to make game master static. Oh wow, I just guessed at their width, and that was perfect. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this arrow, but remember the arrow is now pointing the wrong direction. Easiest way to fix that is to just change the arrow icons in the properties of that arrow. I'm going to go ahead and save, and I will call this RPG Phase 1. There we go. All right, so I already know that these relationships exist, so I'm just going to go ahead and slam those relationships in. Normally what I would do is I would drop all the classes in first, then start adding attributes, then start adding methods. As I add the attributes, I would then add the relationships between classes if any are apparent. As I add methods, I would add relationships between classes as they become apparent. But in this case, I already know that I need a driver, I need the console.io library, I need the game master, and the game master is the main controller. It's going to be in the controller's package. In fact, to that end, I should probably either indicate that this is in the controller's package by updating the name. I could say controllers dot, and then just expand the width here. And now we know that it's in the controller's package, and that it's the game master class. I've never been a fan of this except in complex diagrams where I can't see everything at once or it's hard to group them up together. I actually prefer wrapping in a package diagram object, like so. Even though that's a hideous color, I hate the orange that they have there. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to, well, let's just say red. And let's change the package name to controllers. And the GM in class inside, let's just make that game master, right? Okay, so there we are. I'm hoping that you guys can see this okay on the stream. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just a bit. Means I've lost. That's okay. I can do this. Move this stuff over. Oh, I actually stole my uses arrow. I'm going to go ahead and just, there we go. Just like so. All right. So here is my game master class in my controllers package. I'm probably going to expand this just a little bit because I'm pretty sure we're going to need more space in the game master class. Not sure how much just yet, but I know I'm going to need some. And based on the requirements here, we need a game master, we need a dice bag, we need a die, and a hero. Okay, no problem. So I'll just duplicate my class here. And I know I need a dice bag class. And I know I need a die class. And I know I need a hero class. I don't know how big these are going to be. I don't know what's talking to what yet. Hero class is going to be kind of chunky. I know that from experience and by the requirements, but we're not there yet. So don't worry, we'll get there. And the way this is listed out is actually meant to be, if you've declared the classes in general, then you can kind of lay these out from simplest to hardest. Game Master has a dice bag. So the Game Master has dice bag that he or she uses to do just about everything, including create the hero character. Whenever you see whenever there's a has a relationship, that means we're going to make an instance of dice bag. That's normally what that means. Now we can debate this a little bit. We can say that the dice bag doesn't need to be an instance, but based on this verbiage, this has a dice bag, that tells me that the intent is that Game Master will be composed of dice bag. Now, knowing where this is going, technically the dice bag could be static if we don't need to make multiple instances for different objects in the game. But I believe in satisfying the customer's requirements, and maybe the customer knows something I don't. Because it says the GM has a dice bag, that means that the GM is going to own an instance of Dicebag. That's what has a means. It means that it has a data field of type Dicebag. So I've got a couple of pieces of information here. I know that Dicebag is not going to be static when it comes time to making members, right? And Game Master is likely going to be static because at this point we don't have save load features. When in doubt, make it instance. If you're not sure, just make everything instance. That's probably the easiest thing to do, and it's the safest thing to do. But I'm pretty certain we're not going to need an instance of Game Master. So I'm going to make everything static in Game Master. So I got static, private, and I'm going to call it Dicebag with a lowercase d of type Dicebag with a capital D. So I now have a Dicebag field in my Game Master class. Because I have that, I know right away that Game Master is composed of Dicebag. I know that for a fact. Now that I've added this data field, I know it's a composition thing. Okay, cool. So now, let's see, but to create the hero class, the GM is, and to create the hero class, that's kind of interesting, right? So chances are there is a create hero method. I'm gonna go ahead and just set it to void for right now because I don't know. I haven't decided yet if Game Master is going to have an instance of hero, if it's going to have a method that just returns a hero. Haven't really decided yet. So when in doubt, just make it void. We can always go back and change it later. Is responsible for keeping track. Oh, the GM is responsible for keeping track of the hero character. Okay, so what that tells me is that I need to store the hero character long term. And the way that the GM stores anything long term, the way that any class stores anything long term, is that it's going to have a data field of that type, right? Now that I have a data field of that type, I know that I'm going to have an instance of hero. And so I'm going to go ahead and just, I'm not going to worry about formatting just yet because I'm probably going to move these classes around a bit. I just want to make sure that the relationships are established. Okay, so now we have, let's see, the Dicebag. The GM is also the brains of the operation. That's what makes it the controller class, right? And we'll use an instance of the console UI class or console IO library to communicate with the user. We've already established that with this uses. We're good. We're moving on. So far, Game Master only has a little bit of stuff. We know that driver is going to have to tell Game Master to run. Chances are we're going to need a static public run method that returns void. So let's see, I've got a Dicebag, I've got an instance of Dicebag, I've got an instance of hero, I've got the create hero method. We'll come back to the requirements in just a little bit to make sure that we've satisfied all the requirements, but this is a good starting point for Game Master. My children are chasing each other upstairs, so there's all this thunk, thunk, thunk. All right, so now let's look at the Dicebag requirements. The Dicebag is able to produce any kind of die needed for any kind of roll. When the GM needs to roll dice, it tells the Dicebag how many dice need to be rolled, how many sides each die has, and whether there is a modifier. Normally when you roll dice in an RPG, you have the notion of like 3d6, for example. And 3d6 is notation that means 3 dice of 6 sides each. So 3d6, the d6 is die of 6 sides. So 3d6 means 3 6-sided dice. If you have 3d6 plus 4, then you would take those 3d6 and you'd roll them, take their rolled total, and then add 4 at the very end. So if I had 3 6-sided dice and I rolled a 12, the plus 4 then turns that 12 into a 16. Doesn't turn it into a 24. It's not plus 4 per die. It is roll all 3 dice, then add the modifier at the end. And we kind of express that here in this explanation. This means that 12d34, blah, 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 right? Okay, cool. So we know that the Dicebag needs, because it's going to be an instance of Dicebag, let's make this an instance member. We'll have the default constructor, and if we don't need to make a custom constructor, we shouldn't indicate a default constructor in the class. We don't have to worry about declaring it in our class stubs. We're fine. So let's do a roll method, and we know that it needs to take in the num of dice. In fact, we'll just do dice as an int. We'll do sides as an int, and then we'll do modifier or mod. In fact, I like mod. Is mod going to be clear enough, or is modifier a better name? What's going to be more readable to other people? Probably modifier, because mod sounds too much like modulus math, and we don't want to imply something that's not true. And then finally, after we have those 3 parameters in the roll method, we need to return the sum total, which is going to be another int. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom out just a little bit. Move this over, and we'll expand this out. So we have dice. The dice bag, this is an interesting concept. Let's talk about this for a second. We know that the dice bag needs to make instances of the die class. We know that. Does the dice bag need to hold on to those instances long term? At this point, based on the requirements, if we read through this, we know that the GM is going to tell the dice bag to roll, and it's going to tell them how many dice and how many sides and what the modifier is. While the modifier is optional, every die roll will have at least 1 die, which will have at least 2 sides. Hang on a second. This is interesting. The modifier is optional. Now, we could write our dice bag such that the roll method always requires a modifier, even if that modifier is 0. But that's going to be kind of annoying, isn't it? Because whenever we roll dice, sometimes it's just 3d6. We don't want to say 3d6 plus 0. We don't want to say 2d10 plus 0. We don't want to say 1d20 plus 0. We just want to say 3d6, 2d10, 1d20. So now we have a situation where sometimes we have a modifier and sometimes we don't. For convenience of the developer, for convenience of code, we could have more than one roll method. We could have multiple roll methods that take in a different set of parameters. This is what we call overloading. Oops, didn't mean to move that. This is what we call overloading. Check this out. Because the modifier is optional, I could make a version of the roll method that still takes in dice and still takes in sides, but that's it. And then it returns the sum result. This means that there are now 2 different roll methods, one that takes a modifier and one that doesn't, because it assumes the modifier is 0. This is way, way convenient. Yeah, we have to declare more than one method, but if we're really smart at implementation time, then we can do some convenience things in implementation that make having multiple methods still very easy to implement. We'll get there eventually. I'm going to let you think about that for a second. If you did console.io and you reused implemented methods, there's a way to do that here that makes your life so much easier. But that's an implementation question, and implementation is not specified in UML. We make a few high-level decisions because we have to, but UML is about architecture. So let's keep going with our UML. Sorry, my throat's a bit dry today. All right, so the dice bag has 2 different roll methods, one with a modifier, one without. Okay, while the modifier is optional, every die roll will have at least 1 die, which will have at least 2 sides. This information right here is great for us because this is kind of pseudocode information, right? This is an implementation decision, but what does this gray part tell you when it comes time for implementation? We have to make sure that when the roll is called, that we have at least 1 die and that the number of sides is at least 2 or higher. So if we keep that in mind, that's going to tell us a ton about what we need to do during implementation. By the by, side note, I keep getting notifications from my broadcast software that I am dropping frames like nuts. So I apologize if it's a little laggy. Hopefully the audio is still good. Okay, and then the archive is usually solid, so we should be good there. All right, so Let's see. The GM may ask for any number of dice with any number of sides. Now, if you're experienced with RPG stuff, then you'll know that there's the notion of a standard set. In fact, a standard set of dice comes with seven dice, right? You have a 4-sided, a 6, a standard 6-sided die, an 8, 2 10s for rolling 10-sided numbers, or for rolling percentages between 0 and between 1 and 100, or 0 and 99, a 12, and a 20. These are the standard dice that come in an RPG kit, if you will. However, what this requirement says is that you need to be able to roll any number of dice with any number of sides. So, for example, if the GM wants to roll 12 34-sided dice, then you should be able to do that. And in truth, that's not hard to do in code. In the real world, you want to think about fairness and geometry and weights, and there are types of dice called gem cut dice that allow you to have a weird number of sides, but mostly there is sort of there is a constrained number of sides you can have in the real world most of the time. But in our game here, and based on these requirements, we don't want to constrain the number of sides other than there have to be at least 2 sides. You can have as many sides as you want. The Dicebag's job is to take the request, create the appropriate die or dice, and roll them the correct number of times and add the modifier. You have some implementation decisions to make here. You can either, when I say I need 3d6, in this particular case, I don't need to know which die rolled which number. In that case, do I really have to have 3 6-sided dice? Or is there another way? All right, so then we have, let's go back here to the, let's go back to the, there we go, to the UML. The Dicebag has these roll methods. If it wasn't for the fact that the game master has an instance of Dicebag, chances are I would make the Dicebag a static class, because there's no state, there's no data that the Dicebag has to hold on to. But because the requirements say that the GM has a Dicebag, I'm going to give them an instance of Dicebag, and I'm going to make all of these instance members for right now. But for now, it looks like the Dicebag is done. And because we're not storing the dice long term, we know that it's going to create instances of the die class, but it's not going to be composed of the die class. So I'm going to grab this instance of pointer and say that Dicebag has an instance of die. In fact, now that I think about it in terms of layout, I'm going to move die over here to the right of Dicebag. You'll see why here in just a little bit. Move that arrow down a little. There we go. All right, so Dicebag has an instance of die. And let's focus on the die class now, because that's what's next in this list anyway. There we go. So here's the die class. Every die has a set number of sides, can be rolled, which means it selects a random number, a random value in the appropriate range. And what determines the range? The number of sides, right? And keeps track of the value of the last roll made. Once set, the number of sides of that instance of die should never be able to change. That tells me several things here, right? So we know that the die has a private num of sides that is going to be an int. But it's not just an int, is it? It's also a final. It's a constant. So we're going to make sure that that is... Oh, why did I make it static? Sorry. That should definitely not be static. All right, so here is our instance field num of sides. We also know that we need an instance field for, let's see, last roll. And that's going to be an int. And we'll probably give it a default in implementation time, but not right now. And if we have, whenever, this is a pro tip, ready? Whenever you have an instance constant, you know right away you're going to have to make a constructor. You have to. Because an instance constant should only be set during construction. It should not be set at declaration, because then every instance would have the same constant. And why would we have an identical constant for every instance at the instance level? If I have a constant that every instance needs, I'm going to make that a static constant so they can all share it, right? But this needs to be unique per die. So it's an instance constant. And the moment you have an instance constant, you must have a constructor. Remember that constructors, unless you're practicing certain design patterns, constructors are always public, and they never have a return type because they're the constructor. The constructor always returns the address of the object it just built. Constructors are also always named after the class they are in. So at casing and spelling. So capital D, IE for die, right? And I like to be explicit. Not everyone does this. In fact, I don't know many people that do. But I like to be explicit that this is the constructor method. So I give it an abbreviated CTOR notation. Okay, cool. Now, I did just get a message on Twitch saying that that the lag is actually not that bad today, which makes me super happy. So I'm really glad about that. Okay, so we've got our constructor in the die class, and because we have a constant, I wrote the constructor with no parameters yet, but we don't have the notion of a default die. Not in this game. We could say the most common situations that you have a 6-sided die, and we could make a default constructor that just defaults to 6. If we want, we can do that. But in this game, there's nothing that makes sense for that just yet. So we're just going to go ahead and have a num of sides parameter of type int in our constructor. Okay, so it sounds like we have a visitor. Hey, brother man.
Hey, Dad.
Now, I'm still teaching. Do you want to come say hi?
Yeah.
Come really quick, really fast, really fast. Here's the camera. Okay. Hang on one second. Let's do this. All right, buddy. Look at the camera. No, you're not in the camera. There you are. Ah, say hi, Luke.
Hi.
Hi.
Luke.
Your name is Luke, but I want... What a ham. All right. And you've got 2 of your favorite things, right? You've got a sword and a knife. He also likes guns. All right. I love you, but I'm teaching. It's time to go, okay? Mwah. I love you. All right. That never gets old for me. Hopefully it never gets old for you. All right. So here is our die. If we can also make another judgment call here. I know we're going to need a roll method. That part is inescapable. So let's make a roll method that returns an int. Hi, Leah. This is my daughter, Leah.
Hi.
Say hi, Leah. Hi there. They're still in their warmy pajamas. It's snowing today for the first time this year, so... Well, for the first time this winter.
It really actually is.
Yeah. And so they're still in their warm pajamas. Okay, so I'm still teaching, so I'm going to do this. But go ahead and say hi one more time.
Hi, and also we're decorating.
Wait. Come here.
Hi, and also we're decorating our Christmas tree.
Yes, we're decorating our Christmas tree. All right, I love you guys very much. I'm going to get back to teaching.
Bye.
Stop.
And also, you have a sweet day.
Thank you, Luke. Can you guys close my door, please?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. And also, you guys have a sweet day, says Luke. That's awesome. All right, so here is the roll method. And let's see. We have a judgment call to make here. We know that the roll method, we're gonna borrow. We're probably going to do what we did in Zombie Dice, right? The roll method is going to return the int that was just rolled, but it's also going to store the last roll. And we definitely need a getter for that. We need to have a getter for our last roll. So get last roll, which is going to return an int. So we've got that. And I've got these separated. I like to separate the constructors from the getters and setters from the functional methods. It just so happens I have one of each right now, so they all look like I'm just putting white space in between them, and I don't normally do that except in groups, right? We just have very small groups. And thanks for all the... I'll tell the kids, everyone on Twitch said hi. Archangel is all jealous. It says I want a tree. I thought it said I want one. And I was like, you want a kid? That's That's great. Glad to hear it. All right, so, no, they said they want a tree. All right, so we have get last roll and we have the roll method. Okay, great. Now, the judgment call that we have to make here is num of sides is a constant. We could either provide a getter. We could say get num of sides that returns an int, and that's going to return our constant. And that way, if we ever decided that we needed dice that were morphic, that were Mighty Morphin power dice, if we decided to do that, then we would still have the getter, and all we'd have to do is remove the final. But I don't really foresee a case anywhere where we need dice that can change sides once they're created. So this is one of those times where I feel really safe and comfortable in making this a public thing. We can make this a public constant. Because it's a constant, it can't be modified. Because it can't be modified, there's no danger in making it public. The whole point of not making your fields public is you don't want other classes mucking up with your data, right? But this is a constant. It gets set at construction time and then can never be mutated again. So that means it's safe to make this public because no one can muck with it. And if we make it public, then they can get it, and yay, right? Some people may argue that because it's not a class level constant, that we should still follow the get pattern. We should still have a get method. And I can see that. And if you want to do that, you can do that. That's fine. I did that last time with zombie dice. I'm not going to do that this time. So I'm going to make this a public constant to show the different approach here. Because of that, our die has a constructor. It only has one. There's no such thing as a default die in this case. And it takes the number of sides. We store that number of sides in a constant. We have a get last roll for our last roll private field, and we have a roll method. All of these are instance fields, and in my estimation, this die class is done. All right, cool. So Dicebag will have instances of die, and our die is set up. Great. So far, so good. I think we're doing pretty good stuff here. Now I'm going to move hero right below Dicebag. I'm going to go ahead and move this composition indicator. I'm going to move it right about there. And we don't really need to see die right now, so I'm going to push it off to the side. In fact, I don't think we really need any of these just yet either. You might have picked up, if you read through the requirements, you might have picked up that the hero class never actually uses the die, at least not at this point in time. So there's no real need for hero to have any relationship with die or Dicebag. Hero is just a member of the game master class. All right, cool. So let's go back to our requirements, because this is where things get crazy nuts, right? The hero is the most complicated class in this lab. And is identified by his or her name and has 3 attributes, which we'll discuss, as well as some bonuses and hit points, magic points, all that stuff. Okay, cool. Oof. Keep having hiccups. I'm so sorry. Okay. I just saw a comment in the Twitch stream that said, "We got the stream playing on the TV in the living room. So much for Saturday morning cartoons." Yeah! Glad everyone is watching. Okay, cool. All right, so let's kind of go through this a little piece at a time. We know that the hero is identified by his or her name. Okay, so we know that a hero is going to, first of all, we definitely are going to make this an instance class, right? We're going to make this an instance class that we can make more than one hero if we ever need to. And believe me when I say you're going to need to. All right, so hero, let's go ahead and make this a private name string. We know it's going to have a name. And there's nothing so far that indicates that name is a constant. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a get name, which returns string, and a set name, which is going to take in a name string. Okay, good deal. And then I'm going to expand this out. Let's go back to the requirements. And let's see, the hero's number has 3 attributes, which we discussed shortly, and those are strength, dexterity, and intelligence. So let's go ahead and do strength which is an int. When you look at the requirements, it's an int. Intelligence, also an int. And dexterity. If I could just spell today, that'd be great. Dexterity, which is also an int. And yes, I'm going to get and sets for all those too. In fact, I'm going to do the following. Get paren void set paren colon space. I'm going to go ahead and just copy those because I'm going to be using those a lot for the next little while. So this is going to be, let's see, can I do a multi-line edit? No, but I can do a multi-line move. Can I do a multi-line edit? If I hold Alt, can I do? No, I can't. All right, never mind. That makes me sad. All right, so get, I could do get, what am I on? Strength. And we want to set strength. For right now, we may yet approach this differently, but for right now, let's go ahead and do this. And we want to do the exact same thing again. Oh, habit. Oh, no, that returns void. Yeah, the set returns void. It's the get. What am I doing? Get doesn't return void. It returns int. I'll have to set this up a little differently. So let's get rid of that. Come down here and do void. There we go. That feels better. Okay. And then we have intelligence, which is an int. And we have intelligence, which is an int. All right, good deal. And then, of course, do the same thing for dexterity. Oops. There we go. Get dexterity. Oh my gosh, I keep fingering these keys. And then we have dexterity, which is an int. All right, good deal. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this down. Okay, saving that off. Okay, cool. So we've got a name, we've got strength, intelligence, and dex, and we have those items. Oh, I have to actually... See, I get so anxious. I get so anxious to do the next thing, and then I get ahead of myself. Dexterity. There we go. That looks better. Get name, set name, get strength, set strength. Get intelligence, set intelligence. If I've made any misspellings or forgotten anything, please let me know in the chat, because I'd rather fix it now than have it be bad in the stream. Okay, so... All right, back to the requirements. For each attribute. Now, here are some rules. Here's some pseudocode stuff, right? This is how you roll the 3 attributes. But who's really rolling these 3 attributes? It's not Hero. Hero's not the one rolling this. Technically, this is a game rule, right? This should probably be in the GM. I could see the argument both ways. If you've played RPGs, then what you know is that you have a standard character which has standard rules. But there are also characters that have special attribute rules. When I'm an elf, I get much more dexterity than a human, but I may get less strength. I'll usually, if we were tracking things like physical beauty or charisma, then we would probably have a higher level of that than a human would have. And so to that end, you might say, well, the hero knows what its base attributes are and what those rules are. And so the hero should be able to roll those. However, the way we have this set up, the GM knows the rules. And the GM gets to roll those attributes. And the GM gets to make those decisions. So we're doing all of the dice rolling. All the dice rolling for right now is in the GM. It's in the Game Master. Because everything's in the GM, that is going to require that the GM rolls all the attributes for the hero, because the hero has no dice. It has no dice bag, right? So these are great rules right here in the requirements document. These are great rules, but these are rules that are going to go in the implementation of the GM. They're here because they describe how a hero gets their attributes, but really the GM is going to be rolling the attributes. Now, these are great rules, but nothing in here results in a method or in a field for the hero. Since we've kind of talked it out loud and we know that GM is going to be rolling these, you could say, well, the process of generating an attribute is a process, right? It's its own thing. So maybe we should have a roll attribute method in the GM class that rolls a standard attribute, right? I'm okay with that. I think that's a good idea. So we can call this method 3 times to get our attributes when we're creating our hero. Okay, cool. Let's see. So that's going to go there. Base HP is initially equal to strength times 10. Initially equal. Anytime you see something like that that says in the beginning something is this, that means either that's a default value or it is something that's determined at construction time. Because it is initially equal to whatever strength is times 10, and strength is a dynamic value, this is going to have to take place at construction time. There's no way for us to know what the default start is because there is no default start. It is 10 times whatever strength is, and strength is some number between 3 and 30. So, and by the way, Hunter in a box, I'm glad that you're happy that there's a stream. Okay. So, I can already tell you we're going to need a constructor. And chances are, for the hero, this constructor will need to take in the strength, the intelligence, and the dexterity. Now, you might be tempted to make these constants. Don't do that. Oh my gosh, I'm talking while I'm typing and it's getting really bad. Don't make the data fields in a hero constant. And the reason is, if you've ever played RPGs, these values change over time, either through becoming better or enfeeblement, or you are given some blessing, or there's something that occurs that permanently modifies your attributes. Any permanent modification should be applied to your data field and should be stored in perpetuity. There are some games where you can lose limbs. If you lose a limb, then your strength is going to be reduced. Or if you lose an arm, your strength goes down. If you lose a leg, your dexterity goes down. If you lose a face, your physical beauty goes down. That sort of thing. So you want to be careful not to make these constant, because they're not constant. And there's nothing in the requirements that even indicates they're constant. So don't do that. This part here in gray is going to be part of our constructor. That's an implementation decision. That is pseudocode. That doesn't happen in UML. That happens later. When the character is first created, the current HP, oh, look at that. Base HP and current HP. That's interesting. Did we talk about that previously? Yeah, base and current. So here's the notion. The notion is that you have a maximum number of health points. That's going to be your base HP. And that's going to be an int. Now, while you're adventuring and while you're killing creatures and while you're shooting NPCs in the knee with an arrow and all that stuff, chances are you're going to take damage. And so there's this notion of the current health point status, the current HP. That means, yes, normally I have 100 hit points, that's my base, but I am Boromir, and I just got shot 3 times by the Urukai, and I've taken 3,000 damage because I'm Sean Bean and I die and everything. So my current HP is going to be negative 2,900. But normally I have 100 hit points, right? So base is what you have maximum. Current is what you have right now. And then there's also the notion of base magic points and current magic points, which we're going to talk about momentarily. Oh, look at that. I just added 4 more fields to my hero. 4 fields that can change with time. 4 fields that I need to get data from. Oh man, it's almost like I need to set up 4 new pairs of getters and setters, right? So here we go. And yes, you gotta do them all. So here's the part that engineers hate about UML. But this is also the part that saves lives. if you are this fastidious about it, then the likelihood that some other developer on your team is going to make a mistake goes way down. Way down. Assuming that you can actually spell the word int, right? So here is base MP, and, oh, on the set, I did, okay, good. And then base MP, taking in base MP, but let's do that as an int, and now I'm being interrupted again. Oh, you know what? I also like to declare these in the way that they're declared in the fields. Hey, Luke, what's going on, buddy? Yeah. What's going on? He's playing Fortnite, and he wants you to know that he's playing Fortnite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And have you taken first yet today?
Yeah.
You took first earlier? Leah took first earlier. I think she took first twice today.
Yeah. Daddy, I'm going where you are.
Okay, that's fine. Just, you can be quiet. It's cool, man. Doggo. No, I don't have my dog in here. I have my son in here. All right, so let's see. Either that or you're cheering him on. It's one of the two. Let's see. I just want to make sure I haven't screwed this up somehow. It's okay, good. Now we'll do the current MP, right? So current MP, which returns an int. And then we have current MP. Oh, no. Oh, you are right. My dog is in the room. She's just really quiet. I'm so sorry. Yes, Archangel, you are right. My dog is in the room.
Yeah, I let her in the room.
Good job, Luke. All right, so let's see.
But I'm the great boy.
You are a great boy. Get current, set current. Get base, set base. Get current, set current. Okay, good. Just want to make sure. Okay, everything's there. And there we go. And right now you're probably thinking, man, this UML is getting super long. Yeah. Wait till you start writing 3 to 5 million lines of code, right? Yeah. UMLs get big. And that's okay. They're supposed to. They're supposed to be a map of what you need to know. Okay, so base HP is initially this. Current HP is initially equal to base. These are implementation rules. A damage bonus applies. This is an implementation rule. A dodge bonus is awarded to, okay, all these are implementation rules, right? But what's interesting is that all of this has to do with what happens when you set strength or set dexterity or set intelligence. Gosh, if only we had a place in the hero class that had business logic for when we set values. Finally, the hero class needs to implement an override of the toString. That's easy enough. All right, cool. So let's come down here and let's make sure, again, I like to separate functional methods from gets and sets from constructors, right? I like to keep all those separate. So here we're going to have a public toString, which returns a string. And because this is an override, the declaration is very specific. Has to be public, has to be toString with the lowercase t capital S, has to take in no parameters, has to return a string. Because it's an override, it has to match the originally declared method, right? So here's my override. Ba-bam. It's okay. He can be in here if he's quiet. It's fine. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. Also, wifey. Kieran. Yeah. I would like to go out as a family to lunch today.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right.
Me too.
Yes, yes, you're part of the family. You get to go with us, buddy.
But the rain is coming.
And now he's shooting people.
I don't want the rain.
Okay, remember, you got to be quiet, though, because I'm doing my stream, okay? All right, so hero class, toString, override, done. All right, so It should be known that you will add to and refactor the code you produce for this lab. In the future, you will need to be able to change the values of the attributes of a hero and thus change the associated stats and bonuses. So remember what I said earlier about don't make these things constant? It says right here in this paragraph not to make them constant, right? They're going to change. Keep this in mind when designing and implementing your classes. Also, all classes must practice proper encapsulation. Have we done that? Yes, we have. So we're okay. Now that we're done with the hero class for right now, I want to revisit Game Master. I want to think through the process that the Game Master has to go through, right? Because our run method is just going to be a high-level control method. It should be able to call other methods to get the thing done. Like, what's the flow of the application? So what is the flow of the application? Well, when we start, we're going to create a hero. Do we have a method to create a hero? Yes, we do. So we're okay there. Then we're going to ask the user if they want to keep that character or re-roll, right? If they want to re-roll the character, if they want to keep the character. That sounds like a console IO call to me, because if they want to re-roll, that's just the condition for a loop, and I can use console IO prompt for bool for that, right? Once they stop rolling the character, we have to prompt them for a name. Do we need another method for that? I don't think so, because we've got console IO, which has prompt for input, right? And so we could just get, well, I guess we could argue that we don't want a trim empty response. And right now, prompt for input does not consider trim empty to be the same thing as empty. So you know what? Yeah, let's do a prompt for name method. So create hero. Let's do prompt for name. And let's have that return a string. Let's have it return the name that it gets. And that method will have the logic for making sure it's not trim empty. If it's trim empty, tell them they can't do that. Cycle again, prompt them again, all that sort of stuff, right? Roll attribute. Oh, wait, I got to finish making that static. There we go. So static public run, static private create hero. And then we have a prompt for name. Notice that create hero is still void. Should it be void? Think about that for a second. Should it still be void? We could. We could keep it void. What makes that possible? Well, the hero object, the variable that holds the hero instance, that is a class level variable that has the same level of it's static, and this create hero method is static. Luke, turn that down, please. So the create hero method can simply set that variable if it wants. And you know what? Similarly, prompt for name doesn't have to return a string. Prompt for name could simply set the name of the hero if it wants to directly. So I don't care which way you go. You can make both of these void. You can make them both return the type they're building. Or you can do what I've done, which is one is void and one is not. I don't care either way. As long as your architecture makes sense ultimately, as long as people know what you're doing and how you're going to use it, that's all that matters. Yeah, I can see the arguments both ways. So choose the one that makes the most sense to you. Either one will work. Either void or have a return type. So what would create hero do? Well, based on the name, what would create hero do? What does that sound like to you? What does it mean to create a hero? Well, based on the requirements, first of all, at the very beginning, when the app starts, the very first thing that happens is that the GM will automatically create a randomly generated hero. What does it mean to create a hero? Well, a hero has 3 stats. They have strength, intelligence, and dex, all of which need their own individual roles, right? So strength gets 3d6, intelligence gets 3d6, dex gets 3d6. And then based on these rules, if I'm rolling strength and I roll a 16, 17, or 18, I now have to roll a bonus die. If that bonus die, if that d6 comes up a 6, I get another bonus die. And no matter what that value is, that's as many dice as I get for strength, right? So every attribute is between 3 and 5 dice, depending on what you roll. This is an entire process of creation. So you have to roll these attributes. Once you have the 3 attributes, you can call The GM will call the hero constructor, passing in the 3 attributes. But inside this constructor, not only are we setting these attributes, but we are determining bonuses. Oh, you know what? We don't have bonuses reflected here. We don't have the bonuses reflected. Here's an interesting concept. Do we want to store the bonuses or do we want to derive the bonuses? Storing means that we store them in perpetuity and we can overwrite them anytime we want. We can get them anytime we want. Deriving them means, well, the bonuses are based on logic and other existing data. For example, the strength bonus, the bonus you get from strength, is based on how much strength you have. Well, Banana Man Dan, I'm glad that you asked the question because it pointed out to me that I've forgotten to indicate what bonuses are, right? So are bonuses stored or are they derived? I can see the argument both ways, especially as we get into later phases and we talk about like bonus modifiers and stuff. For right now, the way that this is set up, bonuses are completely derived. What that means is I can use other existing data to produce a different piece of data. For example, if we had a person object that stored first name and last name as 2 separate strings, right? Then that would mean that if I wanted to have a full name value, if I wanted to have like get full name, do I really have to store the full name? Well, I'm already storing the first name and the second and the last name. Can't I make the full name from those 2 things? Luke, stop that. And can I make the full name from those 2 things? And the answer is yes, I can. I can derive the full name from having the first and last name. Do I need to store the full name? Do I need to have another full name field? No, I really don't. Because that field will always depend on what first and last name are. So with that in mind, I'm going to add some getters here, but I'm not going to add any new fields. And here's what that would look like. I'm going to go ahead and extend the hero just a bit. Let's push this up and drag this down. And in my getters, let's see. I'm going to do the bonuses after the fields. So we've got get damage bonus, which is going to return an int. But again, that's derived. That's going to come right out of the strength attribute itself. Let's see. A damage bonus will apply to high strength. And damage also, let's see, a negative damage bonus, okay. But in either case, the get will figure this out. A strike bonus, all right, cool. So we've got get strike bonus. Hey, you know what? I can see a pattern forming here. Let me get rid of that for just a second. Let's go ahead and copy that. And then I will just go ahead and add the word that's missing. Get strike bonus. There is a dodge bonus. So let's do dodge. And then after dodge, there is a, let's see, base MP has a spell strength. Has spell strength. Get spell strength. So that one's not a bonus so much as it's not called a bonus, but get spell strength. But it is in its own right a bonus. It's a modifier of some kind. Shh. You're doing okay, buddy. Did you die?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. Likewise, negative penalty is. Yes, you get to start over, and you get to do another one, and that's always fun.
Man, we have really best guns. 3 best.
You have really the best guns? Great. All right, so now we have our bonuses that come from our stats, and these are derived facts. They're not their own fields, but they come from existing fields. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so there is our hero. I like it. And let's see, where are we? We've got die, we've got Dicepack, we're creating a hero. Shh. we're creating a hero. And all the game master has to do is roll the 3 attributes and provide them to the constructor. The constructor does the heavy lifting, and the setters will help us do some of the heavy lifting, right? Notice what hero looks like compared to everything else, right? Holy moly, look at this thing. This is amazing. Let's see. I'm just gonna format a little bit here. And let's get that one also, and let's bump that down just a little bit. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm just formatting stuff. Just want to make it pretty. Let's do that. And let's bring this up again. There we go. And let's cinch up this package. Okay, great. Now, I'm going to take this package. I'm going to bump Dicebag down a little. Just a smidge. There we go. And yes, I want to straighten out all my arrows because it makes me nuts. Oh, I'm actually going to drop this down. There we go. And I'm going to take this package. I'm going to wrap all 3 of these classes because this becomes the models package, right? I guess and then let's give this a different color just so it stands out. Yeah, let's make it blue. Why not? Hopefully that's not too harsh on anyone. I know that I've got students with certain levels of color blindness, and this can be a pain. Actually, I think the green reads better. Why did that? Oh, I know what happened there. I know what happened there. The arrow got sticky on the package instead of on Dicebag. There we go. Okay. Archangel, my son is better at Fortnite than I am. So that tells you something. Also, he's 4. And then, if I wanted to follow the same convention, I could wrap driver in its own package detail. And I will make that the orange color because I hate it, and this is kind of a boring package anyway. And this becomes my app package, right? So I've got the app package inside of which we have driver. I have the controllers package inside of which we have game master. And I have the models package inside of which I have my 3 model classes. Notice that console.io is its own library. It doesn't have a package that I'm expressing here because there's no need for it. There's no need for that at all in this case. All right, cool. I've got my reusables over here, but I kind of don't need them anymore. So I'm going to hold the control key and highlight them. Oh, or not. I'm going to hold the control key and highlight them and then just get rid of them. Now, here is my UML for RPG Phase 1. At this point, if I wanted to make this something I could show someone else or send to someone else, then I could always do an export as. And I recommend doing PDF. It maintains the best quality, it makes it zoomable, and it makes it a non-modifiable doc for the most part. If you want to incorporate it into another document, like a Word document, I would use probably a PNG. That's going to be your best quality. A JPEG will give you the smallest size, but will reduce the quality in certain situations. So a PNG is probably your best bet. If you want this to be a graphic inside of a GUI, you would use a vector graphic, an SVG. All right, guys, that's it. That is, hi, I'm colorblind. I still love you. Yes, I also still love you. I'm so sorry for not being able to accommodate your color blindness in this case. Anyway, so this is it, guys. This is, hopefully I haven't missed anything. I am human. I make errors, but I believe what we have here meets the requirements as specified in the document for Phase 1. Yeah, the hero class is big. Wait for Phase 2. Wait for Phase 3. So anyway, this is it. This is the UML diagram. And if you can follow this diagram, this will make creating the RPG Phase 1 that much easier. You now have a plan. You can now see how certain implementation decisions were made. If you have any questions about what certain things mean or why certain things are missing, please let me know, and I'm happy to explain it. Or you could just go back and watch this archive because I am going to archive this stream. I didn't see any questions come up in the Discord. I saw some comments here, but none of them were really asking a lot of questions. There were a couple questions, like the one about what does it mean to create a character. I'm really glad that you asked that question because it made me realize I'd missed the bonuses, and that's a big deal. All right, yeah, that's everything. Does anyone at home have any other questions at this time? I'll wait just another minute or two, maybe just another 30 seconds, 60 seconds to see if you have any questions. If you do have any questions, or if anything's muddy, or if you don't understand what's in the diagram, please speak up now, either in the Twitch or on the Discord in the help channel, and I will reply to you right now. Otherwise, you can always send me a message via Discord or email, and I will reply to you just as soon as I can. I'm going to wait just a little bit longer here. I had a really great Thanksgiving. I spent time with family. I've got my in-laws in town. We're having a great time together. We're going to go out and have lunch together here in just a little bit. Also last night, I did a Black Friday stream for The Division where we ran survival, and it was awesome. It was fantastic. I have only finished a survival run twice ever, and last night was the second time. So, spoilers. So anyway, I got a question. Yeah, why are you decorating your Christmas tree in November? The rule is, in my house, the rule is as soon as Thanksgiving's over, Christmas stuff can happen. And my wife is a huge Christmas fan. In fact, we started listening to Christmas music yesterday. I get burned out on Christmas music really fast, so we have to find really creative Christmas music. But my wife is super cool about it. I love Halloween. I do Halloween like all October long. I hate when people bring out Thanksgiving and Christmas stuff before Halloween has even happened. Then Halloween happens, and it's all about getting ready for Thanksgiving. And I hate when people bring Christmas stuff out before Thanksgiving's even happened. But then Thanksgiving happens, and it's all Christmas every day until the new year. Once the new year happens, like January 1st, time to bring the tree down. So, there you go. Should we roll attributes before creating the hero, since we insert the attributes into the hero constructor? Actually, you kind of answered your own question in your question, right? Yes. Remember that when you have parameters in any method, even a constructor, when you have parameters, you have to supply that data when you call that method. That means that before I can call the constructor, I first have to have the attributes. However, you may have also noticed that we have a role attribute method in the GM. So in a way, if you wanted to make this a little bit more concise, but a little less readable, you could actually pass that method call in to the hero. So for example, I'm just going to bring up a notepad here. For example, I could say that since create hero is void, that means it's going to set the hero directly. I could simply call create hero, like so, and then call role attribute for strength, because that's going to return an int, right? And then role attribute for intelligence, and then role attribute for dexterity, and that's the same thing. That actually means to call role attribute 3 times. The first time it'll be used for strength, the second time it'll be used for intelligence, and the third time it'll be used for dexterity, or whatever order we declared it in. Yeah, it was strength, intelligence, dexterity. So you could do that instead of making 3 ints based on that role, right? You could go either way. And then me personally, when it comes to debugging, I prefer the variable, like declare and set variable, then use the variable. That way, during the debug process, I can stop and I can look and see what strength is before I pass it in. If I go with just the method call within method call, I can't really debug that. Not at this point, or I can't debug it before it's too late. So I prefer to have the 3 variables, pass the variables in. I think it's more readable. I think it's more debuggable. You can analyze the process better that way. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. If there's any other mud, if you have any other questions, I'll wait just a little bit longer to see if anything else pops up. But otherwise, I hope that you're having a great Thanksgiving weekend. I hope that you're taking advantage of Black Friday. I hope that you're getting ready for Christmas. I hope that you're thinking of others. And as your instructor, I hope you're getting your work done, right? Like, I hope you're getting some downtime for sure. But I also hope that you're getting your work done. And I also hope that you take advantage of this stream, because this diagram here should be very helpful to you in the end. It should really help you here. And this stream, everything I've talked about, I lots of hope here. I realize that, but I hope it helps you out. That's the whole point, right? Can I play guitar for you? I've actually gotten really rusty, but I've been meaning to use Rocksmith to skill back up. I used to play guitar all the time. I was never truly great at it, but in high school and college, it served its purpose. So yeah, it was. I love it. I will play guitar. I've actually thought about streaming Rocksmith, but I'm a little too self-conscious to do it yet. I used to be reasonably good at guitar, not great, and now I'm just trash. So yeah, can I play guitar for you? Sure. Is that thing tuned? I don't know. Would it be a good song? Meh. I'll play it for you sometime though. All right. I'm glad you got a really nice microphone for $30. Was it a Yeti? Was it a Blue? I would love to hear more about your microphone. Dicebag can't call any dice it desires, only what was required for the hero. So that sounds to me like you're only making 6-sided dice. But if you follow this diagram, if you refactor your die class and your Dicebag class accordingly to take in the information here, you'll be able to roll any kind of dice the GM requests. This is set up to do exactly what it needs to do. So look at this diagram, compare it to your code, and see what changes you might make. Wow. What a comment. Thank you. I know who you are, Tim Mc22, but just gonna call you Tim Mc22 for right now. Anyway. Okay, cool. Archangel, I'm glad that helps out. I'm glad it does. Any other final comments? Any other final questions, please? If you've got questions, please throw those in, because if not, then we'll just wrap this up and put a button on it. Put a bow on it. I almost put a chat window right here, but I felt like that would be kind of obfuscating for people who are trying to see what objects I'm grabbing from the sidebar. But next time, if it fits, I think I might put the chat window there so you guys can see what the chat is doing in stream. Let's see. All right. Well, you guys are awesome. Thank you very much for being here on the stream. I don't think we're going to get any more questions. If you have one, please ask. I'll wait a little bit longer. But I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your vacation and your holiday to be here and to participate. It's been awesome doing the stream with you. I appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. And as always, please don't forget to be epic and don't suck. Until next time, guys, take care and send me any of your questions and I will reply.